Hello, I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Tom Whitmore, Regional Head of Information Governance at Iron Mountain, who will be covering how to discover, classify, and manage your unstructured data.
Great, thanks, Mika. So the first thing I want to tell you is that you are not alone. The volume of unstructured data being created every day is immense, and it's only going to continue to increase at an incredible rate. Most companies have struggled to put into place any proper governance or classification for their unstructured data, despite the functionality being available in collaboration tools such as SharePoint, Microsoft 360, Google Docs. This exposes them to risks such as legal and regulatory noncompliance, data privacy breaches, cyber risks, inefficiency in work processes, increased storage costs, operational costs, and just not knowing what data they have, and especially not knowing what of that data is sensitive or personal or not. This information that's collected and processed and stored, but not being used for any other purpose, is what we call dark data. So organizations are struggling with how to deal with that. What we do know is that organizations are usually very good at four things. They're good at collecting data, processing data, storing data, and the fourth thing, they're good at ignoring data. So as a business, you have to work hard to be the best in your field, to stand above and beyond your competitors. So in times like these, where the amount of data is just increasing at that incredible rate, and as we are still kind of emerging from the global pandemic and dealing with increases in data related to those activities around the pandemic, you need to be able to add value and confidence in your brand. And it's really essential to be able to do that, and controlling electronic content and data is a critical piece of that. So when dark data is ignored, this can lead to privacy violations, security breaches. It can put you at a competitive disadvantage. It can also damage the reputation of your brand, a brand that you've worked hard to build. So Iron Mountain and ActiveNav team together to help make zero dark data your destination. Research into these areas shows that approximately 92% of companies do actually have a record retention schedule or policy in place. But from our real world experience, when we help organizations discover data that they have on their shared drives and the SharePoint sites, Google, et cetera, what we found is that only about 69% of their content is what we call rot. So that's the information that's redundant, obsolete, and trivial, that's just clogging up your server space. So this rot is taking up a lot of that space. If you think of 69% of your entire data estate, that means that a much smaller percentage of that information is actually useful. And of that, only about 5 to 10% of that data are actual records, information that's important for the business and required to be retained for legal purposes. So due to the volume of information we've now accumulated and the speed at which it accumulates, it's become obvious that the only way any of us can classify this information is through some sort of automation. Even back in 2014, The AIM organization was predicting that this would be the case. So we believe that there are 5 key challenges that undermine the ability to automate classification. First, the number of categories that people are trying to classify information into are usually too many. Most companies have between 100 and 500 record categories or record classes in their retention schedule. And when they change it, it makes it difficult to recategorize that information. Second, poorly defined categories or record classes that overlap is when they're not distinct enough, so you have trouble putting records into categories in the first place. So minimizing any ambiguity will help ensure better implementation of that classification. Third, training size. So the amount of training you have to do increases with the number of categories. So for each category, you need training data. That means that you can do a lot more, or you need a lot more data to be able to train the algorithms in a machine to be able to identify information at a high level of accuracy. So imagine, 500 different categories that you need to have enough data to get the machine learning algorithms to properly classify that content. So fewer categories, fewer training sets are required. Fourth, most organizations won't allow vendors to remove their data to be used in training sets. That's reasonable. So most vendors of machine learning software have to start from scratch. The training algorithms that they use for your data would need to be created. This particular problem is eliminated with ActiveNav because they use what they call blind discovery. They don't need to know everything up front. They can look at every individual file to help you understand what information you have and what it's about. And fifth, the subject matter experts that know the most about the actual records in your business, the people who are using them every day, they're not records management or retention specialists. Even though that may be part of their responsibilities, they have a day job that they have to do. And that's going to take up most of their time. And so just finding time to do records management can be difficult. And because they're not doing it every day necessarily, they just may not be as quick or as keen about that. So they don't always have the time to manually apply classification and retention to data. And even if they did, they don't always do it correctly. And that's just human nature. So minimizing any manual efforts and automating where possible is preferable. So the approach that Iron Mountain and ActiveNav have partnered to offer is a complete solution to address these challenges. We've developed a combined methodology to approach the problem in clear and distinct phases. So the first phase is discovery. We'll carry out an initial discovery process to identify rot, to reduce the size of the haystack first off. Then we can just look at the important information, reducing the time and the effort. So once we clear away the rot and look at those 5 to 10% of information that are actual records, we'll be able to identify and spend the time on the next phase, which is classification. So when we build out rules, some of them are just out of the box rules that we know to be true and can easily implement, and then some are customized. We can integrate ActiveNav with Iron Mountain's Policy Center solution, which we'll talk more about in a few minutes, in order to map the content to your records retention schedule and classification scheme. So once that classification is done, we move on to a sustainable implementation. So lastly, we create a process for continuing to manage your data by automatically applying your retention schedule rules, potentially from Policy Center, to your newly created digitally born data, using ActiveNav to monitor and maintain compliance of your unstructured data with a complete view of what data you have and where it is. So let's take a look at more information specifically about ActiveNav software and solutions. So ActiveNav has two approaches to data discovery software solutions. They have a cloud SaaS solution that has been purpose-built for discovery across on-prem or cloud repositories, basically anywhere that holds user-generated data. So at great speed and low cost, you can build an always-on inventory viewed within a single pane of glass. This provides a sensitive data audit using scoring that allows you to understand your dark data risk exposure at any given time. Second, ActiveNav has an on-prem solution that provides a tool set which allows you to address and deliver a focused data cleanup project using customizable indexing and rule sets that come with the product that can then be tailored to match your company policies that are already in place or to address a specific use case. Each option has specific strengths and can be tailored to meet your specific needs, your budget, and can scale to get you where you need to be. So if you have, a limited budget, we can focus those dollars essentially on the areas that are most critical and can get you the most information the most quickly, or the most information as quickly as possible. Along with these solutions, Iron Mountain and ActiveNav can offer services that help speed up the implementation of your project by bringing skill sets and education and training and overall valuable experience to the table. We have been there and done that for a lot of other customers, and we can share that knowledge with you, and we're happy to do so. So the cloud project, the cloud product that I just mentioned from ActiveNav allows you to build actionable data maps within minutes. This gives you a near real-time view of your unstructured data. So just within a couple of minutes, you're able to see exactly what's out there. And then the web-based dashboards that they have make it easy to drill down to even the most obscure data points. The screens that you're looking at now show a few examples of how ActiveNav's on-prem toolkit can report and allow you to act on your data. Working on content in place allows any unwanted or over-retained files to be quarantined or removed in bulk. So you can make decisions based on the information you find in the dashboard and help stay on top of the process. So now let's look at the Policy Center solution on the Iron Mountain side. So I mentioned earlier how we integrate ActiveNav with Iron Mountain's Policy Center solution to help map your data or content to your records retention schedule and classification scheme. If you're not familiar with Policy Center or haven't seen it before, it's a cloud-based software that hosts your retention schedule. It is intended to be the source of truth for records retention in your organization. And we provide and keep up to date all of the relevant legal and regulatory information that you need to inform your retention rules. So what we see on the screen here is an example of the Policy Center dashboard. It just gives you some insight into what information is in Policy Center regarding your retention schedule. It allows you to, or Policy Center allows you to upload your existing record classification or create a new multi-level taxonomy of record categories, which can be used as is or updated for you. Or if you don't have a schedule in place today, we can help create a new retention schedule that's appropriate for your industry. Policy Center has a citation library that is kept up to date with legal and regulatory retention and privacy requirements for over 150 jurisdictions around the world. So regardless of your geographic footprint, we can provide the underlying legal support for your retention rules. This information is kept up to date through ongoing maintenance so that you can be notified whenever there's a change in the law or whenever a new law goes into effect that's going to impact your retention schedule. And then you can customize your retention rules for each record class to suit the organization. For example, you can have rule sets at a global level or at a country-specific level, or you can create exceptions as necessary to accommodate different requirements across different jurisdictions for the same record class. Also within Policy Center, a number of reporting options, a number of data mapping options, as well as a complete audit trail to understand all of the changes that occur to your retention schedule over time. And then we also offer the ability to publish your retention schedule across your organization to end users so that they have easy access to their retention requirements and can easily understand and apply them to both physical and electronic content. This publication portal, which we see on the screen today or now, can be the single source for information for your users when it comes to record retention. You can post your retention schedule, records management policies, frequently asked questions, training materials, information about how to manage electronic content in your systems. All of that information can be shared through this portal to your end users. So since electronic storage space isn't that costly these days, reducing that space is not the most compelling argument when calculating a return on your investment. Back in the day when paper storage was the be-all and end-all of records management, you know, the cost per box, the cost of destruction, the cost of retrievals and returns, you know, all of that added up and could paint a really compelling picture and identify a clear ROI. It's not as simple, it's not as straightforward with electronic data. But what we've put together here is a visual to help you understand and to help your funders, the people that control the budget, understand where the return on their investment is coming from. So there are many benefits which, even if they're harder to quantify, they all contribute to the return on the investment of remediating unstructured data. And it's really important to remember these if you're building a business case to support a proposal or to gain senior sponsorship and funding. In this slide, we've categorized some based on the level of effort that it takes to determine what the actual ROI would look like and the value that you can gain if you can. So there are a number of important risk reduction areas that you should be considering. Those are listed here, and we've categorized them from high to low value, high to low effort, to make it easier to talk about with the folks controlling the money. So I want to conclude with talking about the utilization of Iron Mountain and ActiveNav and the partnership that we've developed to help with the remediation of your legacy data and the future management of your unstructured data. With our partnership, you'll be able to have access to our advisory services team and a global team of consultants at Iron Mountain who've been doing this work for years and who bring those years of knowledge and skill to the table. Those years of experience working with hundreds of similar clients on similar projects, whether the struggle is related to dealing with your dark data or with understanding your retention requirements or bringing the two together, we are able to provide you with customized solutions that help to get you where you want to be. We utilize a proven methodology and a phased approach that can be tailored to your individual needs, depending on where you are today and where you want to be going forward. Iron Mountain's leading industry retention schedule software policy center that's accessible in the cloud and helps you roll out record retention requirements across your organization and make that retention information or those retention rules available to your record keeping systems and utilized by ActiveNav's data discovery tools. And those tools and the management software that ActiveNav provides will help ensure the security and privacy requirements are being met and to reduce your risk exposure for your electronic content. I'll pause for just a second. I know there's a lot of information on the screen. I'm happy to come back and answer any questions about this. But before we go, I would like to share a case study with you. We recently completed a project for a large utility based in California. In this particular case, they were migrating shared files to an enterprise content management system. And they had identified over 1,000 different file shares that all needed to be migrated. They had very little information about what was in those files. So they understood there was a substantial risk for over-retention of information, as well as a lot of redundant, obsolete, or trivial information, and possible non-compliance with legal and regulatory requirements. So with our partnership with ActiveNav, we were able to get into the data and identify what was there through a 4-phase approach. And we've talked about these phases already. in the broader sense, but specifically related to this engagement. Phase one was to identify what was out there, look at the files that are associated with different facilities, and use a rules-based auto-categorization process to identify what was out there. The next phase was to then create data classifications for sensitive data. So once we knew what was out there, we could look at it more discreetly to identify what of that information was sensitive, because that was going to be critical, especially with the advent of CPRA in California. Once we had identified, we could then tag any official records and identify what of that content was eligible for disposition and could be removed from the data set completely. And then finally, we were able to clean up and consolidate and help to reorganize that data in the file shares so that it fit into the taxonomy structure of the content management system. And from that point, this utility was able to continue this process going forward, applying the same classification to any new content coming into the content management system.
Thank you, Tom. For the Policy Center solution that Tom covered, as well as other Iron Mountain digital solutions to help you manage your information, we partner with AWS to help you accelerate your journey from physical to digital to cloud at petabyte scale. We partner to bring your digital solutions to help you automate manual processes, know what you have and use it, and save and protect your assets. Thank you for your time, and please reach out to your local Iron Mountain representative for more information.